Well, this is an important day in the COVID-19 battle and a potential game changer for families of young children.
An FDA advisory panel has suggested that the COVID vaccine for has suggested right that the Pfizer vaccine be approved for children, but it still needs approval from the CDC.
UW Health Chief Quality Officer Dr. Jeff Pothof is back with us. Good to see you.
Hi, Dr. Pothof.
Every time you're here, we have breaking news.
Yeah.
I know, it just seems it always happens on Tuesday, right?
So how big of a game changer is this?
I mean, this is kind of a big deal. There's a lot of people in our country who are age 5 to 11, and I think for a lot of parents, they've just been waiting for the moment that they can protect their children. It gets our kids a step closer to getting back to normal.
The vaccine is being fast-tracked for children, but a lot of parents, even fully vaccinated parents, remain on the fence about it. So what's your advice?
Yeah, I think, this vaccine, this Pfizer vaccine, is one of the best studied vaccines in the history of the world at this point, given how many doses have been given. We understand it really well. It's going to be safe for those 5 to 11-year-olds. The data is conclusive on that. And it's going to be effective in preventing them from getting COVID, which has all kinds of deleterious side effects for our kids. So for my kids, I'd be happy to get them vaccinated, that first day that we can get it, hopefully in early November now.
It's not a full dose. It's a third of the dose of the regular one and a smaller needle. And they want to give it in schools and stuff to make it less scary for kids.
Yeah, I think, vaccination's not something that any kid looks forward to. No one's raising their hand saying, I want to go first. So I think you do those things. The third dose is useful because it has as good of immune response. It likely decreases the rate of that heart inflammation that folks heard about, a 0.002% chance with the regular dose. That's probably even less now with this smaller dose. And we want it to be accessible. So whether it's mass vaccination sites like we were all kind of used to early on, or going to your local school, even your pediatrician's clinic, we can give these things much more broadly than when they first came out. So hopefully anyone who wants a vaccine for their 5 to 11-year-old can get one in the next couple weeks.
What if your child is closer to 12 than 11? Would they potentially need a full dose rather than this smaller dose?
I think from a practical standpoint, it might not matter at that age, but if they were under the age of 11, they would get that 1/3 dose, and they had kids who were, on the older side of 11 in these trials. They mount good immune responses. If they were 12 and they got the full dose, that's just a matter of having to pick an age where you switch. But if your kid is 11 years old and almost 12 and gets that 1/3 dose, they're going to be fine.
And it's going to be available. The government bought 28 million doses. That will cover every kid 5 to 11 in the country.
Well, I think it's not only available, but a lot of vaccinators have been kind of waiting for this. We've been hearing about the 5 to 11-year-olds for a while now. I suspect that they'll be ready to give those injections as soon as the CDC gives the green light on November 2nd or 3rd.
Children generally have mild symptoms, even if they test positive for COVID. Isn't that true?
That's true. So we see.
Why take the risk then?
Yeah, I think, we often think about COVID as this binary disease. Either you do fine or you die. And although it's likely that kids are less likely to have severe disease, they do have long-haul symptoms from COVID. They do get this inflammatory condition. It does keep them out of school for a long time, which isn't desirable. So there's a lot of reasons why when you're balancing COVID-19 versus the risk of a vaccine, the scale quickly falls, and the vaccine is definitely the right decision.
And it's still kind of new. We don't know what the effects are good if a child would get it now. If this goes into adulthood?
Well, yes and no. So we understand vaccines really well, and vaccines, when you give them, they create an immune response. And the good news is you find out pretty quickly whether that's a bad immune response, an adverse event, a good one, good immunity, or it just didn't work. So with other vaccines throughout the last 50, 60, 70 years, there is no such thing as a side effect that comes on a year later, 2 years later, 10 years later. That just doesn't happen with vaccines, and that's why we're so confident in the safety of these vaccines, even though they've been out for a year.
The mask mandate in Dane County, the latest version of it is going to be expiring soon. Do you expect it to be renewed in early November?
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think given our current levels, they're decreasing, so that's good news. Once we get, kind of in that lower substantial transmission risk, you could see the mask mandate taken away. My guess, and I have no knowledge of what public health is going to do, is that it might extend for at least one more time. As that curve come down, we'll see how transmission goes in Dane County, and then maybe sometime in December, you could see a mask mandate go away if things continue to look optimistic.
And Dane County is the only county in the state that has gone down a level in the CDC's chart.
Yeah, I think, Dane County is a good example of the things that public health is telling the population work. they actually work. Vaccination works, mask mandates when you need them, they work. And now you have Dane County where you can feel a little bit safer when you're out and about in public. It's just really the proof is in the pudding there.
And for the big old kids, get the booster when you can.
Yeah, absolutely. The big old kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you'll find more people are eligible for a booster than not eligible. So check those criteria. And if you get that booster dose, your chance of these breakthrough infections, which we're hearing about even with the Packers, becomes much less likely.
All right, Doctor, thanks for being
Great
with
to
us.
see you, Dr. Pothof.
I'm sure
Thanks
we'll
so
have more to
much.
talk about next week.
You bet.
And we'll have a final check of your forecast coming up.